To reshore or offshore? The question for today. And to speak with us about that, Harry Moser, the founder and president of the Reshoring Initiative. Harry, good to see you. Welcome.
Great to be here, Russell.
Harry, let's talk about the considerations that we need to walk through when we make this very important decision, whether we are going to reshore or offshore, whether our sourcing activity and others are going to be here or offshore. What do we need to think about? What are those considerations?
The simplest aggregate measure is TCO, total cost of ownership. Mm-hmm. So by definition, it's total. So it includes everything you could think about. So most companies make their decision based only on the FOB price or ex-works price, the factory price. And there's a 20-30% difference maybe between China and the US. But with total cost of ownership, you add in duty and freight and carrying costs of inventory, the risk of another pandemic, the 29 other factors like that. And when you get done with that, pretty soon 20 or 25 points of price differential goes away into overhead costs and risks, such as the risks that we've seen in the last year or two.
So clearly there were a number of people who were looking simply at how much it's costing me to manufacture here, and that's why, years ago, I decided I want to do things offshore. I want to do it in China, I want to do it in Vietnam, wherever it is. But you're telling us there are many, many considerations, and it may lead you to want to reshore. Is that correct?
So we have online the TCO estimator, total cost of ownership estimator, that is free to use. Companies can go in, do the calculation, come up with that total cost. And I took the first 180 cases of China versus the US. And again, using the user's data, not my data, user data, of 8% of the cases, the US had the lowest FOB price. In 32%, we had the lowest total cost. And if there was a 15% Trump tariff, then we won in 46% of the cases. So by the companies doing the math correctly, considering all the costs, all the risks, a significant portion, we say 20, 30% of what they're now importing, they would reshore.
Persuasive argument, quite frankly, that if the economics were leading them to go offshore, and now they see that they may need to come back offshore. Let's talk about the trend for the last 5 or 10 years. What's that been like?
I founded the Reshoring Initiative in 2010, and in that year, the total number of jobs announced coming back, combination of reshoring and FDI, foreign direct investment, combination of those two was 6,000 in 2010. In 2017, it peaked at 180,000, dropped off a bit with the trade war, came back to 160,000 in 2020, 160,000 jobs in that year, and looks like in 2021, 200 to 220,000. So we've had essentially a continuous upsweep like this.
Mm-hmm. Well, you're making a very persuasive argument for why we need to either stay here or reshore, come back here. Is there an argument in favor of offshoring? What kind of company really is offshoring ideal for?
Yeah. First, we're always talking about product that's going to be sold in the U.S. or North America. Mm-hmm. So if you're going to sell in China or India, make it in China or India. We think that's fine. It's got nothing to do with the argument. So that's the simplest case. Most people would say that very labor-intense product where you cannot automate it, you should probably make in that lower labor cost country. Products where the demand is very constant. There's no cyclicality, there's no seasonality in demand. It makes sense so you can make it, you can ship it in big quantities, you know you're going to use it up eventually. Whereas if you've got let's say apparel where there's a lot of seasonality and no one knows what the fashion's going to be until the day before Christmas kind of thing, if you have to order it 8 months, 9 months in advance, you eat a lot of it. Whereas if you can order it 2 months, 1 month in advance, much more likely to win.
Harry, I'm the typical guy that knows that it's going to cost me less money to manufacture whatever it is I do, my widget, in China. So that's what I'm thinking to do. How do you convince me that maybe that's not the right decision? What do you typically say to someone like me?
So if you say you own the company, let's say, or you're the head of supply chain, I'd say, tell me about 3 or 4 products where you're getting pain, where your deliveries are horrible, where the quality isn't acceptable, where you're worried about intellectual property risk, right? Where engineering here and manufacturing there are not communicating well. Okay? So we have some combination of those things, and then let's do the total cost of ownership analysis of those. And the reason I pick those is that then there'll be champions of those products. You know, the inventory control person, the quality person, the salesman, all of those want all those problems to go away, and they'll help us champion and do a correct analysis of the product.
I'm curious how I can optimize. There must be a number of things that you would say to me that I need to consider. Some investments I need to make, some change management that simply has to take place. Optimize my company. Tell me, what do I need to look at?
You know, a lot of people would speak of lean shoring.
So let's define that. What does that mean?
So we know what lean is: not having waste, doing only things that bring value to the customer.
Right.
So Jim Womack, one of my neighbors, famous, one of the most famous lean guys, he says, Harry, talk about lean shoring. Tell them when they bring the work back, do not put it in the same old factory with the same crew and the same machines and do it in the same fashion, but instead bring it back, get new equipment, train the people better, apply lean principles so you have good flow through the factory. And if you do that, if you lean shore, in many of the cases, it'll make sense to bring it back.
Harry, it sounds to me like you are offering some really sound advice, good service for people. The Reshoring Initiative is a nonprofit, so if you would just give us a simple little spiel. What does the initiative do for someone? What's on the menu that I'm going to be able to avail myself of?
First, we track the data so you can see if your competitors have reshored. We promote it. So we speak at conferences. We write. I'll do 70 podcasts and webinars this year. So we get the fact out that it's happening. And then finally, we have the tools, this TCO estimator that I described, and then a service to come in to a company. And if they think maybe we should reshore, but how do we get started? We'll come in and provide the service of helping them get started. If the company also competes a lot with imports, we can help them identify the biggest importers of what they make, and then train them to convince those importers to buy from them instead. So we can help them in the supply chain and in the sales process.
Harry, fascinating talk, and you may have just saved somebody a bundle of money. Listen, I know you're busy here at the conference. Thank you for finding the time to speak, to sit down and speak with us. Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure, Russell. Great to be here.
That's Harry Moser, Reshoring Initiative, and speaking with us today about a very important decision: to reshore or to offshore. Thanks for watching.